Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am super excited to share with you our guest today. This is Mike McKinsey, and he has a very incredible near-death experience story, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as we do. So, Mike, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You traveled quite a ways.
Yes, I did.
I appreciate that very much.
Sure.
I shared with you earlier, and I'll share with our audience, I have not heard Mike's story. So this is all new news to me today. We're just going to kind of wing it. I'm super excited. So Mike, go ahead and jump in. Tell me what your story is. Where does it start?
Well, my story starts quite a ways back.
Okay.
Actually, when I was 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather passed away. I went to his funeral, and at 5 years old, Mom started telling us about God and Jesus and heaven. And I thought, okay, didn't make a lot of sense. Then we go to my grandfather's funeral, and the priest is up there, and he's talking about that my grandfather's in heaven now. There's no more tears. There's no sorrow. There's no, it's just joy and love. And he's talking about all these things. And I remember saying to God, wow, that sounds really cool. I'd like to see that.
Was that your first introduction to Christ, God, church?
It really was,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mom had just, she probably talked to me about God before that, but 5 years old, I think, was the impact of that funeral that made me kind of think, okay, what's going on here? Who is this God? Who's Jesus? And this heaven place sounds really cool. So every night, Mom would come in and we would say our prayers. Me and my sisters, we'd all gather around, and she would say, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. And at the end of that prayer, I remember saying, God, I want to see heavens. Can you show me heaven? And that became a nightly prayer of mine for like the next probably 10 years.
Wow.
And of course, become a teenager, then other things take over. God kind of takes a back seat to everything else in my life. But I prayed that prayer all the time. So fast forward now 40 years, I'm 45 years old.
Okay.
My oldest son, Ben, he had moved out, gone to college in Santa Barbara, gotten a job, met a girl, dated her for a couple of years, decided to get married. So they set their date of August 9th, 2004. So this is exactly 40 years later. And which, thinking back on it, 40 years, kind of a special number in the Bible.
Absolutely.
So we go to the wedding, but we thought, well, it's 5 hours away from our house. So we thought we'd get there a little bit early. So the wedding was going to be on a Saturday. So we decided to make it like a little vacation, take the kids down there, because the Tuesday after the wedding, they were going to start back to school after summer break.
Gotcha.
So my boys, the two boys that were still at home, were really into baseball. So they brought their wiffle balls and bats. And we check into the hotel, and they see this great big park right next door to the hotel. And they said, hey, Dad, we're going to go play some home run derby. You want to go out and play with us? And I said, yeah, okay, we will. So my wife and daughter came along. We sat there in the park. We played for probably 2 hours. Well, little did I know that twisting motion ruptured my appendix.
Wow.
So I guess it was swollen or something, who knows? There was something going on in there that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
So that night, Wednesday night, I started feeling sick. I thought I was getting the flu. Mm-hmm. Well, it was a ruptured appendix. But I didn't have point tenderness. They always say there's that one spot you can touch.
Right.
And it really hurts. So you know something's wrong. I didn't have that.
Wow.
In fact, my son that was getting married is in the medical field. I saw him Thursday, and I told him I'm getting sick. And he said, it's not your appendix, is it? He just kind of threw it out there. And I said, no, it can't be, because I don't have the thing where you touch it and it hurts.
Right.
And he goes, oh, okay. Well, Friday, by then I'm running a fever. And man, I'm getting so sick. I'm thinking something's wrong. This is a bad flu. So Friday night, we have the rehearsal dinner. I go to the rehearsal dinner, and I'm kind of joking around with some of my family. I'm like, I'm the dad of the groom, so I'm paying for this dinner.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap.
It's expensive. So I'm going to have one of every dessert, and I'm going to have your leftovers and your leftovers. I mean, I'm going to have a good time, which is not a good thing for a guy
your money's
that's getting
worth.
the flu. Yeah. So Friday night, everybody goes home. My family goes to bed. We're all in this big hotel room. And I lay down to go to sleep, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just too sick. I can't sleep. And I'm thinking, Lord, I need to get some sleep. My kid's getting married tomorrow. But I tossed and turned for a long time.
What kind of sick were you? Were you like throwing up or just felt awful, like body aches? Like, no pain though?
I was sweating by then.
Okay.
And I had a temperature.
Yeah.
I didn't have a way to check it, but I went to the store and got a thermometer, and it kind of scared me when I saw it was almost 104.
Wow.
And I went and picked up some Tylenol to kind of, bring my temperature down and ease the pain because my stomach hurt. It was just like a flu.
Yeah. Okay.
And But by then I'm thinking, okay, one more day, I can make it through. Wedding's going to be tomorrow at 4:00, so just power through it. So I go there, I get all the way through the wedding, toughed it out. It was a beautiful wedding. And looking back on it, my favorite pictures of the wedding are the black and whites because you can't tell how pale I am. I was really sick.
Wow.
So as the people started leaving, my son and my new daughter-in-law came over and they said, we're going to go over to my parents' house and open the presents and, keep the party going.
Yeah.
And I said, guys, I got to go get checked out. Something's wrong. Something's just not right.
Wow.
So he says, okay, well, here's the best hospital to go to. And at the time, my wife worked at a hospital in Manteca where we traveled from. It's 5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in the medical field. She knew all the doctors at her hospital. And she says, I'm really worried because I don't know anybody down here. I don't know. Ben says it's a good hospital, but I don't really know.
Right.
It's a county hospital. She's like, so let me call insurance and see if they'll fly us home. So insurance said, no, you're already at a hospital. Go to that hospital and we'll cover it. So I like to mention that because the surgeon brings it up later. If I forget, you'll have to remind me.
I will.
So we go to the hospital. Of course, Saturday night, it's probably about midnight by now. The place is packed. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, like this, just, kind of passing out, in and out of sleep. And they finally call me back, and the nurse gets me on the table, and she lays me down. She says, what are your symptoms? And I said, well, I think I got the flu. And my wife says, no. He's got more than the flu. He's been really sick for 4 days. He has pain in his stomach. And she goes, well, it sounds like your appendix. Do you still have your appendix? I said, yeah. And she says, well, let me do some tests. She takes some blood. She's poking around on my abdomen. She says, does any of that hurt? And I said, no. And she goes, okay, well, let's do this other test. She pulls out a mallet where they check your reflexes, where they tap your knee.
Yeah.
She taps the bottom of my foot. And she asked me if that hurt, and I laughed. I said, no. I'm thinking, of course not. I have the stomach flu. My feet are fine.
Not a broken ankle.
Right. But then she took the mallet, she tapped the other foot, and I had pain in my abdomen that made me scream.
Really?
Yeah. And she says, okay, that's your appendix. I'm going to call in a surgeon. So 30 minutes later, surgeon comes in. He's an old guy. And I'm apologizing. He's sorry for waking you up on Saturday night. He says, no problem. So he comes over and he's checking me out. And he looks at my lab report that came back with the blood count. And he says, man, your white blood cell count's through the roof.
Wow.
He says, so you've obviously got some kind of infection in your body. He says, based on what I'm looking at, I'd say your appendix is probably ruptured. And then he says, have you done any unusual physical activity lately? And I said, well, not really, but I played baseball in the park with my kids on Wednesday. And he looks at me and he goes, Wednesday?
Oh my gosh.
He's like, that's not good. Because this is Saturday. He's thinking like 3.5, almost 4 days.
Wow.
With a ruptured appendix. He says, if your appendix ruptured on Wednesday, and I told him, I said, well, yeah, that's when I started feeling sick. He says, we got to get you back there quick. So he says, let's get him prepped for surgery. He says, I'll see you back there. So he leaves, and she wheels me down the hall. I said goodbye to my wife. She pops open the surgical room doors. There's a couple people in there. A couple of the orderlies help me get over because by now my stomach's hurting so bad I can't get over onto the surgical table.
Wow.
And it's freezing cold in there. Of course, I've got this 104-degree fever.
Yeah.
And I'm sweating, and the table's like skinny. I didn't have anywhere to put my arms, so I kind of cross them on my chest like this. And before they put a mask on me or before they gave me any kind of an IV drip for pain meds or anything, in fact, when I was wheeling down the hall, I asked the surgical nurse, I said, when do I get the happy juice? And she says, well, you haven't even met the anesthesiologist yet, so you're not going to get anything. So until he comes in. So they slide me over onto that table.
So you have no pain meds at all at this
Nothing.
point? Did you realize?
Besides the Tylenol that I'd taken.
Wow. Were you cognizant of actually how sick you were, or were you just kind of out of it?
I really had no idea I was that sick.
Okay. Okay.
Like I said, the whole time I just passed it off as a flu.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I realize I'm a guy and we don't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So good lesson for for guys out there. You know, you get some symptoms, it's worth getting checked out.
Absolutely.
Instead of just saying, it's just a flu, just
tough it out.
Don't worry about it.
Oh my gosh.
So the minute I get over to the surgical table, before they put the mask on, before they gave me any kind of IV drip, anesthesiologist never walked in. I look to my right and Jesus walks through the door as a physical person.
What did he look like?
He was wearing a white robe. He was probably 6 feet tall. Wow. He had dark, wavy brown hair, short beard, and his eyes were like this greenish blue. And when his eyes looked into my eyes, he looked into my soul. I mean, I knew instantly it was Jesus. And I thought, oh boy, I died.
So you knew?
I sort of figured, you know, I mean, why else would Jesus show up? You know, really? And I just thought, man, you dummy, you waited way too long. You know, you should have gone in at the very beginning. Jesus walks through the door and he says, I want to answer your prayer. Now, I already told you the story about praying to see heaven, but I didn't make that connection at that time. So I'm confused. I'm like, my prayer? I mean, I just prayed with my wife that everything would go well in surgery, you know, guide the surgeon's hands, that kind of thing before you have surgery, the typical prayer, right?
Yeah.
He says, I want to answer your prayer. And I'm thinking, man, what's going on here? And I'm still thinking with my physical human brain, I never floated away. I never left my body. Jesus didn't walk in as a ghost. Wow. He walked in as a man. When I first saw him, I thought the surgeon was coming in. It was Jesus. So now I'm confused. I'm like, I can't really tell him no. Jesus is saying, you know, the Savior of the world saying, I want to answer your prayer. And so I grabbed his hand. As soon as I touch his hand, we're instantly standing on this grassy hill. The grass is the most beautiful grass I've ever seen in my life. The perfectly manicured, but not like it'd been just mowed. It was just perfect.
Wow.
And my senses were heightened to the point where I could count every single blade of grass. I knew the number of blades of grass touching the bottom of my feet.
Oh my gosh.
Instantly.
Wow.
And I'm still standing in my hospital gown. I'm holding the hand of Jesus, and I'm barefoot, just like he touched me in the surgical room.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're there. But everything around me is white.
Wow.
Like blinding white, like looking into the brightest light that you've ever seen and holding it just close to your face. You can't see a thing.
Wow.
It's blinding. And I look, and kind of off to my right, Jesus is standing next to me. Off to my right, I see this like white, it's almost, you know, people always say when they die, they go through a tunnel. Mm-hmm. It's almost like there's a light, but it's not really in a tunnel because everything's blinding white.
Wow.
But this round shape was like a pearl almost, like It was shiny. And it was brighter white than the rest of the brightest white I've ever seen, which is really hard to imagine. And so I'm looking at this thing, trying to figure out what's going on here. I'm looking at this shiny thing, and all of a sudden these fluorescent tubes kind of come out of there. They look like fluorescent light tubes, like what you put in your shop.
Like the old school.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You know, but they're fatter. They're about this big around.
Okay.
And they're smooth on the end. And when they come through, they go zipping by me, and one of them hits me in the head. As it's coming at my head, I'm like, should I move? You know, I'm still thinking like a human being.
What did it feel like when
I better
it hit your
get out
head?
of the way. So it hits me, and as it hits me, it makes this light buzzing sound when it goes all the way through me.
Wow.
And it gave me this feeling of warmth, like right down to my toes. Warmth and love.
Oh.
It was really weird. And then I look back where they're coming from, and now this white, this complete white, it's like somebody pulled a curtain from my right to my left. And all of a sudden the white's gone, and now I'm looking at this beautiful scenery. I am standing on a hill. The green grass gives way to these like these little flowers. They're like purples and oranges and yellow, and they look like they're moving in the wind, kind of.
Oh, wow.
But there's no wind.
Huh.
Which I thought, well, this is really, really strange. And they were all just like beautiful colors. At the bottom of that hill, there's this huge valley, and in the valley, there's this giant city. And it's like probably a mile across.
Wow. There's
a big golden dome in the middle, but I can't see the whole thing because that curtain that got pulled, it looks like it's become fog that's settled in the city or on top of the city.
Okay.
So all I can see of this huge city are rooftops sticking through.
Oh, wow.
And there's the golden dome in the middle. There's a couple smaller domes around. There's a lot of white, what look like church steeples that stick through. But one thing that I did notice was there's no crosses on the tips of those steeples. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. It just kind of made this mental note.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in the southeast of the United States, and there's churches everywhere, and they all have steeples.
Yeah.
And they all have crosses
have a
at
cross.
the steeple.
Yeah.
But there are no crosses. And I thought, oh, that's odd. So, because I'm thinking, where am I? This has obviously got to be heaven because the colors are just so vibrant.
Really?
And the city. So across at the other end of the city, and like I said, it's probably a mile across, there's another great big mountain that goes up, and it's covered in these pine trees, and they're the most gorgeous pine trees I've ever seen. They're perfectly shaped, but they don't have needles on them. Like they have like a needle, but it's got like these lacy little things. We were talking earlier in our interview
about Palo Verde trees.
Palo Verde and mesquite trees.
Yeah.
And I whenever I see those trees, I stop and I take a picture and I think, I need those trees in my yard because
really
they look like the little lacy, little tiny little leaves of them.
Yeah.
That's what those pine trees look like.
Really?
But the colors were this perfect dark green.
Wow.
All of them were just gorgeous. Above that mountain of trees, there's this sky that's the most brilliant colors that I've ever seen.
Really?
Like vibrant colors. They start off as like reds and orange. Picture the most beautiful sunset you've ever seen. And that's what I always compare it to, but there was no sun.
Wow.
But it still had the colors. And so at the top is, there's purples and there's blends of colors. It's so hard to describe.
Wow.
But I've tried to describe it to my family and my friends by saying, if you take a picture with your iPhone and you take the exposure and you go all the way so that the colors are just like, wow, but everything is kind of distorted, that's close to the colors that they were.
Okay.
But nothing's distorted. Everything was perfect.
Wow.
The sky, the color was just amazing. And then at the top in the blue, there was a few wispy little clouds that were kind of floating by. And I look back at that moment, I look back at where the light beams were coming from. And now instead of going by me, they're going across the city. So they're going everywhere.
Okay.
When they go all the way across the city, one of them hit the tip of one of those trees, those mesquite pine trees. And it's like it had a diamond on the tip of it, because when that light beam hit the diamond on the tip of the tree, it burst into fireworks.
Wow.
Like bright white fireworks against that colorful sky. It was unbelievable. And pretty soon more of them hit. And it's like all of a sudden now there's a fireworks show going on. And it's bursting everywhere. And I look back to where they were coming from, and Jesus says to me, "It's the glory of the Lord." And I was like, wow. I mean, when he said that made me so weak in my knees that I lost it. I couldn't stand. And I fell to my knees. At the instant my knees hit the ground, they shocked me and they brought me back.
Wow.
So now instead of this beautiful scenery, I've got a doctor leaning over me with a mask on. And he says, "Do you know your name?" And I answered him. But what I realized was I answered him in my mind. I didn't verbalize. Mm-hmm. So he looks at me again, kind of confused, and he says, "Do you know your name?" And that's when I realized I didn't say it. So I opened my mouth to talk, and of course my mouth's super dry. I'm back to 104 fever. I'm sweating again, really uncomfortable. I said, "Mike," and he says, "Oh, good. Do you know where you are?" And now I had to think, heaven.
Yeah.
Had to back up the wedding. Oh, that's right. I'm in Ventura. So I said Ventura. And he says, "Good." And he looks around at somebody else who was in the room. I realized that there's like 5 other people in there all wearing scrubs, blue scrubs.
Yeah.
And he says, "Let's get him up to ICU." And I spent 5 days in ICU and 12 days total in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
So here's where there's another this part makes me sound like a crazy man. And there's actually more to the story, because 24 hours later, I woke up in ICU, mm-hmm. and I didn't have a nurse with me, but I remember she put a call button on my chest because I was so weak I couldn't pick my hands up off my chest to reach over and grab a call button. So she put it on my chest, and she put my hands on it.
Wow.
She says, "If you need anything, just our nurse's station's right there. Just hit the button." So I wake up and I can't breathe. And I felt like my lungs were full of water.
Wow.
And I was I was trying to, struggling to breathe. And so I hit the button. I said, "Hey, I can't breathe." And she comes running in, and she takes a stethoscope and she puts it up to my chest. And I'll never forget her words. She looks at me and she goes, "Oh, honey, you're developing pneumonia."
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, great, besides the whole ruptured appendix, now I'm getting pneumonia.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, okay, that's why Jesus showed me heaven, because he wanted to know where I'm going. And I waited too long. I'm done. I'm leaving. And I expected Jesus to show up again. So the crazy part is, well, not the crazy part yet, but they bring in 5 other nurses, and they packed me in ice. She took my temperature, still 104.
Oh my gosh.
So by now I'm taking penicillin or amoxicillin, whatever kind of drugs they give me, antibiotics. And they pack me in ice. Another nurse gives me oxygen, so going directly into my lungs. And she gives me this little thing called a spirometer, where I have to breathe into it. And it's a tube that you blow into, and you make this little marble move. It's got numbers from 0 to 10, and you're supposed to blow into it, and you get the little marble to move up to, she said, hold it at number 5. And she says, do that 10 times an hour. She says, give it a try. So I go, I can't even breathe.
The marble doesn't even roll.
It didn't move. And it's a little plastic marble. It's not like it's hard to move.
Gotcha.
So I go like that. And she goes, okay, you just keep trying that. We got to clear your lungs. And
oh my goodness.
I thought, there's no way. I'm not going to make it. So as the nurses are leaving, I describe it like this, like I felt a holy presence enter my room again. And my mom, when her mother passed away, she said she was with her at her home by my grandfather on the other side, not the one that funeral I went to. On the other side, he was a nurse. They were from Holland. So they came over here when mom was 16 years old. Wow. So he was a registered nurse. So he wanted, my grandmother died of cancer, and she wanted to die at home. So mom was in the room when she took her last breath, and she said, she told me about it one time. She said, Mike, I felt the holy presence enter the room. And I used to always bug her, like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? It's got to be more to the story. And she would cry, and she said, that's the only way I know how to describe it.
Wow.
So when I felt that, I flashed back to mom telling me that, and I thought, okay, I get it now. So I knew that Jesus was back in the room as these other people were leaving. And I could tell he pulled up a chair. He sat down at the end of my bed. Wow. I couldn't see him, but I knew he was there. Here's the crazy part. I hear him say, Michael. Same voice that I heard when he said, I want to answer your prayer. So I knew it was Jesus. He says, Michael. And I look over at the nurse like, did you hear that? Yeah. And I didn't say anything. And he says, Michael again. And I look at the nurse and I said, did you say something? And she says, no. She says, try the spirometer again. So marble doesn't move. So Jesus says, I'm calling you out to do more for my kingdom.
Oh, wow.
I said, I looked at the nurse. She didn't hear that part, but I heard it audibly.
Wow.
It's not like in my spirit. It's an audible voice.
Yeah.
Calling you out to do more for my kingdom. You know what I told him? I said, you got the wrong guy. I'm not Billy Graham.
Oh, boy.
I can't do that. Now, 22 years ago now, in 2004, I was coaching a lot of baseball, and I was uncomfortable talking to 12 Little League parents. I get nervous and have everything scripted and think I'm going to forget something and look like a fool. And now Jesus is telling me I'm going to talk to people about Jesus.
Wow.
Not going to happen. And then he just kind of ignored it. And he says, millions are going to hear our story.
Oh, my goodness.
And I just shook my head. I said, no. And I thought, millions. Okay, so looking back on it, 22 years ago, you would have to be Billy Graham to speak to millions of people. You'd have to go on TV. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. I can't do that. You got the wrong guy, but I'm flashing back in my mind reading Bible stories. Moses had a stutter, but he was told, you're going to do this for me. All these heroes of the Bible come to mind. And I'm thinking, I'm not one of those guys. I'm not doing it.
Wow.
And he kind of chuckled when I said that. He just went like that because he knows the end of the story, right? He told me all kinds of things. He stayed there, talked to me for 3 hours because I fell asleep at 5 o'clock. The last thing he said to me, let's keep in touch. So it was a very personal story. He told me I would have valleys to walk through, and whenever something bad would happen in my life that came up later, I would think, here's one of those valleys that Jesus warned me about. But he said, I'll get you through it. You'll feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. You'll be comforted. And he told me some other things, just personal things about my life. And a lot of times when I tell that part of the story, so for the longest time, I didn't tell the 3-hour part where he sat down and he talked. Because when I got out of the hospital, I had a couple of my friends come over. They'd bring casseroles, people from church, right?
Right.
And they would sit down with me, and I would try and tell them the story, and I'd start crying.
Wow.
And I would get through the NDE part, and then I would say, and Jesus came back 24 hours later, and I had a 3-hour conversation with them. Their expression, like the first 5 guys that I told, these are 45, 50-year-old men that I'm talking to. Their expression went from, that's the most fascinating story I've ever heard, crying along with me. And when I got to the part where I said Jesus came back, their expression went to, dude, you're crazy. You were without oxygen too long. You had brain damage or something happened because we don't believe you now.
Oh, wow.
And after the 5th person, I heard again another audible voice of Jesus saying, you don't have to tell this part yet.
Really?
So I shut up about that part. In fact, I said I had a hard time telling my friends that I was crying. They're crying with me. It took me 3 days in the hospital to tell my wife about the NDE because I would say, you're not going to believe what happened. And I would just start crying. I mean, I still cry telling the story at this point. There are certain parts that just get to me.
Yeah.
It's just like I relive it all over again.
Right. How long did it take you to share your story publicly?
Publicly was 8 years.
Okay. And what prompted that for you?
I felt like I needed to tell the story, at least the first part, because Jesus said, you don't have to tell the second part. I don't want you to, people to think you're crazy.
Yeah.
But I thought I need to tell something. And he, when he said millions are going to hear our story, I always had it in the back of my mind, well, maybe I should write a book. I've always liked to write. So I thought I'll just start writing like a chapter or an outline and then kind of expand on it.
Yeah.
And I thought, instead of telling the story like I wrote it as fictional.
Okay.
So I published this book. I self-published it. Of course, I didn't sell millions.
Right.
But I thought, Jesus said millions. I got a book out there, sell couple hundred, couple thousand copies. It's going to be laying around forever. People will read it. Maybe we will hit 1 million someday. You never know. I thought it was done. So there's another kind of miracle that happened to get this story back out to where millions would hear it. I got an email from someone named Carolyn something or other from Guideposts. I'm sorry, Carolyn, if I butchered her name. I butcher names all the time. Maduro or something like it. Anyway, I get this email that says, "Would you like to be included in your NDE story in our book called Witnessing Heaven?" And it's in this series. It's called Glimpses of Eternity.
Okay.
And I thought, well, Guideposts. I know who Guideposts is. Maybe that's what Jesus was talking about. Millions will hear the story that way. And I said, yeah, sure. So I spent like probably 4 or 5 months emailing this writer and talking to her on the phone and telling her all about my story. She wrote it up. It came out in the book. And when that book came out, I thought, would it be all right if I did a little marketing for him, because I was starting to watch Christian content on YouTube.
Gotcha.
Which 20 years ago, there wasn't any. It was just all music videos.
Right, yeah.
So let me back up a little. When I mentioned the miracle, Carolyn contacted me 20 years after my NDE. I have no idea how she got my email.
Wow.
I wasn't a public figure. I mean, I had a Facebook page or maybe even MySpace back then, But she found my email. She heard about my NDE. I still don't know where.
Wow.
And after that book came out, I said, by the way, where did you hear about my NDE? She says, gosh, Mike, I don't really remember. So I thought,
God.
Well, it was all God.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this book came out, and my story was one of 4 in the book. And I read it, and I thought, that's pretty cool. She got it mostly right.
Yeah.
And I was pretty proud of it. I was like, oh, it's in Guideposts. That's kind of neat. So I'm watching this YouTube video of this guy in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. His name is, gosh, I'm so bad with names.
It's okay. Take your time.
The podcast is A Stronger Faith.
Okay.
Okay. Stacy McKinsey.
Gotcha.
He's actually a good friend now.
Oh,
so I drove to Tuscaloosa to be on his show. But while I was watching this YouTube video, was Stacy interviewing this guy named Steve, and he's a pastor in Florida. And I thought, this is a really cool channel. So I subscribed to the channel, and I hear same voice. Jesus says to me, audible voice again, I want you to contact him.
Wow.
And I thought, how am I going to contact a pastor in Florida? I didn't know how, description always says, like, you can contact this person if you have more questions, right? I didn't know how YouTube worked. I was just watching a video. And I thought, how am I going to contact the Florida guy? And I hear him say, contact the host. And I thought, oh boy. More work for God here. I'm not up for this.
You're like,
I'm still not
ready. Are you
ready.
sure you still have the right guy, God?
Yeah, seriously, that's what I was thinking. Because I thought my part was over. 2 books, come on. Right? I'm off the hook. Well, he had more in store.
Yeah.
So I look up the contact information on the description. Stacy had this little thing where he said, if you have a story to tell, contact me. And I think he had like 20,000 subscribers. And I thought, that's a lot of people. That's a lot more. Maybe we're getting close to 1 million.
Yeah.
So I wrote him an email, and I said, here's my phone number if you have questions. I had a near-death experience and kind of feel like I'm supposed to tell you about it. I'm supposed to contact you. 10 minutes later, my phone rings. It's Stacy.
Wow.
2 weeks later, I'm in his office, or in his studio. We're recording this thing. We get all done, and 2 days later, he calls me. He says, we lost all the audio. And I was like, wow, okay, Satan's stepping in.
Hey,
He says, Mike, we can meet in a coffee shop. I can record on your phone. And I said, no, Stacy. This is obviously Satan's way of trying to block this thing from going forward.
Yep.
I'm coming back. When do you want me? And he says, come back Wednesday. So we met just before Christmas. The thing came out at the end of January. And then all of a sudden I start getting emails from everybody.
Wow.
Saying, we'd like you to share your story.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, this is, now it's really starting to take off.
We're picking up momentum.
Yeah. So millions have heard my story.
Wow. Praise God.
I know it's amazing. And, when you look at what the Bible says, the one verse that I love to read, it says, ask anything in my name and I'll give it to you, as long as the Father gets the glory. So I always say all the glory goes to God the Father. Jesus is giving me a way to reach people that would not go on YouTube, would not go into church,
right?
Would not crack open a Bible.
Right.
He's reaching people through these YouTube testimonies.
Yeah.
And I'm just thrilled to be part of that. I know I'm a small part, but it's amazing to me. So I started thinking, after I heard this, I started reading the comments from the YouTube stuff, and one of them caught my eye, and it said, your hallucination, it was just nothing more than a hallucination, and it was brought on because you had a high temperature. And I thought, well, 104, I guess that could cause a hallucination, but I don't think you can interact with a hallucination, and that was a really real hallucination.
Yeah.
The NDE.
Right.
And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Jesus showed up 24 hours later, and my temperature came down to 100 after 1 hour. Even though I couldn't blow the little marble, I started breathing better.
Yeah.
And in fact, in 3 hours, by the time I went to sleep, pneumonia was gone.
Wow.
So completely cleared.
Praise
God. So yeah, that was a miracle there.
Wow.
So I thought, well, my temperature was down to 100 after an hour, and Jesus stayed there for 2 more hours. That's not a hallucination.
No.
And when I read that comment, and this was probably after we had like 10 million views.
Wow.
Jesus says to me again in the audible voice, he says, now's the time to tell our story. Tell the whole story, hold nothing back. The world is ready, and so are you. And so the world, obviously we have NDE YouTube channels now.
Right.
There's, Jesus is having success there.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm ready? What does that mean? Okay, so in that 20 years, I went from a guy that was nervous talking to 12 Little League parents to running a bigger organization. I got involved in high school athletics. I ran an organization for 2 high schools at the same time, and I was talking to 500 people at a time. I started a youth football league in the little town of Manteca, so I'm talking to thousands of people at one time. And I was very comfortable doing it now. So God just kind of progressed me larger and larger, getting me ready. And he said, you're ready now.
Wow.
So
that's beautiful.
It's time. Yeah.
Wow. How would you say that this whole experience of sharing your story over, the last 20 years has changed you and your relationship with God? Obviously, the NDE was huge, but how would you say this journey has affected your personal relationship with God and maybe you as a husband and a father and a person?
Yeah, a lot of changes, but believe it or not all at once. I saw the reaction that I got from my friends.
Yeah.
And I would cry all the time when I told the story. And that's why I waited 8 years to even go public with it.
Yeah.
I went back to my same stressful job. I was a construction superintendent for a real estate development company in California.
Okay.
We had 30 to 35 houses that I started start to finish at different stages of construction that I had to go through every single one, every single day. I had scheduling. I had, just everything to do with building a house, answering to the sales department. The customers would stop by,
So you went from this NDE to jumped right back into the chaos of life.
Right back into the chaos.
Okay.
And I looked at everybody differently. Like I wouldn't yell at people on the construction site, I need this done by this day. Darn it, you're going to,
And a please and a thank you now.
Yeah. But you know what? Honestly, that was about the end of it. I mean, I just thought, okay, this happened to me and it was really cool. And someday maybe millions will hear, like Jesus said, but and I'm like, whatever. I've got 4 kids to raise. And it's stressful. Anybody with a lot of kids knows games and weekends were full of tournaments and
then they all want to eat.
Yeah, you got to eat and you got homework. And then it's like, you wake up the next day, it's lather, rinse, repeat.
Rinse
it's
and
the same
repeat.
old thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, I really still just didn't make time for God. The relationship part did change a little bit. I started carrying a Bible in my pocket. It was before you had Bibles on your phones.
Right.
And when my eyes would work to read small enough print. But I would duck off to a house that was almost finished with some carpet in and sit on the stairs and read the Bible.
Yeah.
So I did try to make time, but my day started early, 6:30. I was on the job.
Yeah.
Working until 3:34. And then, like I said, all the kid stuff. So the relationship kind of started by me talking to God. Like I would say, just start having a conversation with him while I'm on the job. And even afterwards, like I'm on the practice field pitching BP to kids, and I'd be talking to God. Hey, let me throw a curveball to this kid, just in dumb things, but still I was getting him. I was being involved with him,
right? Trying
to build that relationship. And then I heard somebody say, well, how do you build a relationship with a human being? You have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And I thought, man, I'm not doing the second part. I'm not listening. I'm just giving God my laundry list in the morning saying, hey, I need to do this, help me do this. And then I would talk to him about, I need help with this. But I never stop and sit in quiet and listen, And so I kind of nurtured that, and that's certainly changed. And then after the Stacey McCants thing came out, I thought, I got to make time for God. Like, he's got to be number one.
Yeah.
Everything else has got to just take a back seat. So, as I started doing more podcasts and telling my story, sharing it in churches, and I thought, I'm all in.
Wow.
And
so is this like what you mostly do now, is share your story? Are you still in construction or?
I retired.
Okay.
I actually retired on disability a while back. I finally got off of that, but I got hurt. I got out of the construction job because it was too stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was gonna kill me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did get out. They paid me a great salary, but I was able to go to work as a sales rep for a paint company.
Okay.
I did really well there. I became the number one sales rep in the nation. I'm sure God had something to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wanted me to be successful. So I got off disability, and then I just retired. I
Very
said,
nice.
I've had enough.
Yeah.
I'm too old to walk around. My knees are banged up and bad back, and you name it. All these old guys out there are going, yeah, I get it.
Going back to your appendix burst, did they give you any stats on like what the likelihood of you surviving is? I asked because my great-grandfather died, his appendix burst. His father died, his appendix burst. 2 of my children at a very young age, their appendix burst. I know
wow.
The prognosis isn't great.
Yeah.
But what did they tell you at the time, or did they?
Well, the next day the surgeon came in, and he comes in and he's poking around, checking my stitches. Well, first of all, they didn't open me up. He said the best way to do this, because I don't know if you've ruptured, I'm going to go in through your belly button with a scope. And it's actually a good thing that they did, because he said if we would have opened up and caused oxygen to hit that for some reason, it makes it worse.
Wow.
So he cleaned me up as best as he could, but he came in the next day and he said, yours is the worst case I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I was like, you're kidding. And this is like a 70-year-old man.
Wow.
And then he's poking around. He goes, yeah, it was really, really a mess in there. And he says, you'll probably develop an abscess, which is something where the germs that they miss, because they can't get everything with a scope.
Right.
He says, you'll probably develop an abscess, but they'll go in later and get that. And that's a whole crazy story, how they do that. We don't want to go into that. But he says, basically, the abscess forms because the germs get together and they try and finish you off.
Wow.
And as he walked out, he kind of grabbed the door and he comes walking back in. He goes, I wasn't exactly truthful with you. It wasn't the worst case I've ever seen, but yours is the worst case I've ever seen where the patient lived. And he says, you shouldn't be here.
Wow.
And then he actually said to me, this chokes me up. He actually said to me, God's not done with you yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's incredible. God is so good.
So good.
Is there anything else you want to talk about regarding your story? It's a beautiful story.
I would just say that, gosh, if anybody has doubts, reach out to God, ask him to reveal himself to you. I really believe that he will, because I asked for something, I guess something else I should throw in there, because when I was a 5-year-old kid and I prayed that prayer, if you think about it, a lot of people say, well, he said no for 40 years. But what he said was, not right now, because you pray a prayer, heaven is activated. God says, okay, I'd love to be in the boardroom at the end of the day when he says to the angels, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. In 40 years, we need this guy here. We need him to have kids to play baseball. We need to keep his appendix intact for 40 years. We need his son to marry this girl, so we're 5 hours away from home. We have to have all this stuff put together,
Wow.
So he started working on answering that prayer at that moment.
At 5 years old.
5 years old.
Wow.
And 40 years later, he answered it.
No.
But I guess my whole message is Jesus is not only a real God, but he's a real person. And he reaches for everybody. And all we got to do is just take that hand.
Amen.
And build that relationship.
Praise God. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's amazing and beautiful. I'm very honored to have you here. And I can't wait to see how many lives this piece is going to touch. God is good, and we don't do anything without him going before us. So I'm excited. I think this is going to be really great. How many people have you reached so far, would you guess?
Well, see, I've done podcasts, and some of them are shorts. If you counted everything, and I've done some radio. I've done, the Armed Forces radio.
Wow.
Who knows what the reach is for there?
Right.
I would guess at least 20 million.
Wow. God is so good. Isn't that amazing? You thought in the beginning, like 200, maybe 2,000. We're good.
I know. We're good. I'm done.
And now you're blowing apart 20 million.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's how God works, right?
I know.
We serve such an amazing God.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for watching our show. I'll be praying for you. And thank you again. This has been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching our show today. Please hit the subscribe button and share this video. It really helps us and helps reach the masses and spread the good word of God. Thank you. Have a great day. We love you, and we'll see you next time.